Wall Street Journal is under fire for publishing this letter written by the former President Trump, that is riddled with falsehoods and baseless conspiracy theories about the 2020 election. Joining us now is Maggie Haberman, CNN political analyst and Washington correspondent for the New York Times. Maggie, a very smart person told me not long ago that this letter written by the former president contains things that have all been fact-checked by the Wall Street Journal itself. Yet the Journal publishes this letter from Trump, which contains all kinds of wild things in there. To me, this is an example of the mainstreaming, the inch by inch, of the former president getting his lies into the mainstream.
He found a way to platform himself, right? I mean, he's off Twitter. He is not on most news programs, with the exception of a couple on Fox. He has generally been relegated to things like OANN and so forth. And so he found a way by writing a letter to the editor to get it into the public. Now, most people would say a former president having to do this kind of thing seems desperate. He doesn't care. He got it into print. It got tweeted. We're talking about it. But to your original point, these are claims that the Wall Street Journal's reporters, and they're very, very good reporters in that newsroom, have fact-checked and have talked about the fact that they're not true, and yet here they are just being run in a way that if an average reader wrote in, they couldn't get this stuff in, most likely. But Trump is very able, and always has been, to use news processes against news outlets, and that's what he's doing here.
Because it doesn't matter that he's reduced to this. He doesn't care.
No,
He doesn't have shame about it, and it's effective. It gets out there for people.
Yeah, look, we're talking about it, right? I mean, it was talked about on Twitter all day yesterday. Yes, it was still talked about, and this is not true, but people will still hear the details of his false claims, and that still leaves some kind of an imprint. And if you do this, one of the things that he uses, and I don't actually think this got enough attention during his presidency, and certainly not during the 2016 campaign, one of his methods is repetition, and he knows he's doing it. And so he will say the same thing over and over and over and over again, because he knows that at a certain point it does sink in. And yes, there is a desire to treat him as if, he literally has no idea what he's doing. He actually often on this stuff does know what he's doing, and this is an example.
Repetition is incredibly effective, as he has shown over time. John Eastman, who was the lawyer behind the scenes, who drafted a blueprint to overturn the results of the election, how Mike Pence could do it if he chose to on January 6th, he was caught up with by this activist who made a video. And I want to play what John Eastman said in that video. Listen.
All your legal reasoning is totally solid.
Yeah, there's no question. But
I mean, this supporter to supporter, why do you think that Mike Pence didn't do it?
well, because Mike Pence is an establishment Republican at the end of the day. And all of the establishment Republicans in D.C. bought into this very myopic view that Trump was destroying the Republican Party. And what Trump was doing is destroying the inside the Beltway Republican Party and reviving the Republican Party in the hinterland, right?
Again, this was a Democratic activist who posed as a Trump supporter to get Eastman to talk right there. Eastman talking about this in ways that are different than other ways he talks about this when he says, I wasn't saying Pence should do this, I was just saying could.
Yeah, look, there's a separate issue about people posing as something other than they are, that people talking on tape, but putting that aside, what he says here is very different than what he said to the National Review. I would like to know if he said more, and I don't know if he did, but certainly based on those comments, he's explaining why Mike Pence wouldn't go along with a plan that he said elsewhere he wasn't seriously posing. And this has been one of the issues since Bob Woodward and Bob Costa's book came out, Peril, which detailed this memo. Now, look, Eastman was saying a lot of that stuff publicly, but it was just on paper. And the reason it's important it was on paper is that they had tried suggesting, Eastman and people around Trump had tried suggesting, we're not really saying overturn it. We're just saying, you can send it back to the states. That was their second plan. The first plan was overturn it, and that wasn't going to work because there were not alternate slates of electors. Eastman has offered various, explanations at this point, and so that's what makes the memo, frankly, more important.
An alarming moment that I wanted to get your perspective on. This was at an Idaho event for a conservative group, Turning Points USA, this was an audience member asking an activist, a right-wing activist, Charlie Kirk, a particular question. Let's listen.
We're living under corporate and medical fascism. This is tyranny. When do we get to use the guns? No, and I'm not, that's not a a joke. I'm not saying it like that. I mean, literally, where's the line? How many elections are they going to steal before we kill these people?
So no, no, hold on. No, stop. Hold on. Now I'm going to denounce that. I'm going to tell you why. Because you're playing into all their plans, and they're trying to make you do this. What I'm saying is that we have a very fragile balance right now at our current time, where we must exhaust every single peaceful mean possible.
I don't know if the question is more alarming or his response. I'm going to stop you because you're playing into their plans, his shifting of responsibility.
I do want to, look, he did condemn the guy. He
Yeah.
did say this is not right. I don't think that should actually be ignored because that's important and there frankly hasn't been enough of that kind of thing over the last 5 years. The playing into their hands piece, this is often a tactic at this point to say that, this other person is making you do it, this is why we shouldn't do it, or this other person is going to benefit. The question is alarming because the question is a reminder that this is the question is alarming because it's alarming, but it is a reminder that one of the problems with the discourse that the former president was heavily involved in is that people respond to things that you say when you are a president and when you demonize opponents and when you talk this way. It doesn't matter, to your point about what Charlie Kirk says about, quote unquote, the other side. That should be irrelevant as to whether you have to take accountability for your own words. And what we saw on January 6th was a direct product of what the former president was saying about the election. And this kind of statement, it has a tie into it. It is a statement about where we are in this country, where threats of violence have become increasingly mainstreamed, and that goes directly back to the 2016 campaign.
And look, we can't say any more it won't happen, because January 6th did happen.
That's right. And look, any statement about when can you use the guns is a terrifying statement. So I think it is good that Charlie Kirk said, I'm going to denounce that. I hope that more people will say something like that.
Thank you, Meg. Great to see you this morning.